Deranged, a gothic semi-cooperative adventure survival game for 3 to 6 players. The game is set in a town where all sort of monsters and horrors will manifest themselves. 3 to 6 players represent characters that are stuck in that town. They'll need to survive 3 days and 3 nights, that is the length of the game. They need to, actually don't need to survive, it's okay to die a couple of times, but most importantly, they need to get rid of curses. Everybody starts with 2 curses represented by cards, and when you die, you get more curses, and there are more conditions, missions that if you don't complete them will give you more curses. In order to win the game, you need to be free of all curses, you need not to be deranged, which means you need not to have this kind of token by the end of the game, and you need to reach a token that will be placed next to the board on one of the axes of the town. If you complete all of those 3 things, you're clean of the deranged condition of curses, and you're sitting on the gate at the end of the last period of the game. Then you win the game, which means any number of players may win the game, or no one. So maybe that everybody wins, everybody loses, or any mix, 2 win, 3 lose. So is life. We have different time trackers based on the number of players. So this is what you use for 4 players. This is for 3 players. And again, the game lasts 6 phases. Day 1, night 1, day 2, night 2, day 3, night 3. And then again, you determine how many people lost and how many people possibly won. So our miniatures represent the position of our characters on the board. Very nice miniatures, I like them. And then also each character has a tracker such as this one to keep track of their health and their sanity. As you can imagine, when you go down to 0 health, you're dead or technically knocked out, because then you'll wake up by the Angel of Mercy or one such name there, and you'll feel fresh and rejuvenated, but also with an extra curse. When you go down to 0 of sanity, then you simply cannot perform actions that will allow you to spend sanity. Sanity is basically a currency. The game is card-driven in that you're gonna have a deck of cards and a hand of cards coming from that deck, and you will draw cards from that deck to create a hand of cards, and then you'll play cards to trigger these actions. So getting a little closer to the board so you can see it better. Also, the board, as you can see, is modular, made of 4 tiles, they're double-sided, so you can vary the board by playing with some sides up or down. And then, again, we're closer to the board, which is divided into spaces with arrows that tell us how you can move. When you move, you need to follow the direction of the arrow. So, for example, that's a one-way arrow. You can only move from there to there. You can always move using white arrows, but if they're colored arrows, you can only use a movement card of the corresponding color. So to use that connection, I need to be playing this card to be able to move across that light blue connection there. We have streets, that's pretty self-explanatory, and then we have buildings. We have 3 name buildings, the apothecary, the smithy, and the library, each with a unique deck of cards that you can acquire by performing the search action in the corresponding space, and that is why there is a chest printed in those buildings as a reminder of that. Then you also have numbered houses. As you can see, they're numbers from 1 to 6, and there is a token in there because the search action can be performed only once. Once you perform an action in a numbered house, the token is removed, and in this case, the card comes from a deck of cards that you pull from the 3-headed decks during setup, shuffle it together, and place that token there as a reminder that those are the cards you find in the numbered houses. And there are monsters, of course. You start scenario 1 with hungry ghosts, And the Hungry Ghost is the default monster. They're always there. In different scenarios, you will have different combinations of other monsters. So actually, to prevent spoilers, I'm not going to show you much about the scenarios. I'm just going to show you the general idea, which is you can just play sort of the standard game without scenario effects, or you can play one or three scenarios. Again, scenarios number from 1 to 3. Each scenario has 6 cards, indicating, again, the 6 phases of the game. So here you have a description, flavor text for the first day. If you flip it, there will be effects that will take place then. Once the time tracker goes from the first day to the first night, then you will resolve effects at the end of the first day and you will start the first night, and so on and so forth. So these 6 cards for each scenario, again, will give you different conditions and will change the rules in some way every time. The general idea is this: players will alternate taking turns. After you take your turn, well, usually that's it. But once every player is taking a turn, then the monsters on the board activate. A player will have this token as a reminder of that, or when it is the turn for the monsters to activate. Some actions that you take will also advance time on the time tracker that I showed you. Not every time you take a turn, you'll advance the time token. And once somebody takes an action that advances the time token from a day to a night, then there is a little bit of upkeep to do, because that is when first, again, you resolve effects that may come from the scenario and you set up the effects for the next phase. So end of the night, beginning of the next day. Also, at the beginning of the game, each player receives 3 night cards, again, 1 for each night. And when the night begins, you reveal this deck, the cards, everybody reveals that one. And they may be different effects, maybe it's even a good one. Maybe it's a night mission, meaning that you need to complete a mission before the night is over, otherwise you will draw a curse. And again, every night, somebody will become deranged. So if that's your card, if you have the deranged condition, you will take the deranged token and you will place it on your tracker next to it as a reminder that you are the deranged. Also, you replace your miniature with the deranged miniature. And that's why basically is the color at the bottom that indicates ownership, because again, these 2 miniatures represent the same person, just looking slightly different different times of day. So the deranged looks a little bit like Ultron to me. That's just me, I guess. When you're deranged, you play a little bit differently, and most importantly, you're trying to kill people, because in order to get rid of the deranged token, you need to defeat another player. There are also some cards that there's some exorcism cards, but there aren't many. They're hard to come by. You may not be able to find them in a game, so there's no way of getting rid of the deranged curse that way. It's possible that you have it, but it's still expensive. You may not be able to use it. That's something that happened to me once. And so when you're deranged, most likely you will try to kill another player. If you kill another player, then you can get rid of the token. Otherwise, at the end of the night, the deranged character returns to be human and plays just like they played before. But the deranged token stays. So during the day, if you kill somebody during the day when you are human, the beast is there slumbering, doesn't really get to enjoy the kill, and so the token stays there. So basically, once you are deranged, you can get rid of this token only by killing another player at night while you are completely deranged, or if somebody plays an exorcism on you, which, as we said, is not super common or easy to do. So that's like some of the basic concept, the general idea. Now, how do you actually activate? Again, when it is your turn, you will play a card and then you will perform an action. If I decide to choose the action of moving, well, then I move up to that distance, and again, following the indication based on direction of the arrows and colors. The first action during the day is for free. After I play an action, I can choose to play a second action by spending a point of sanity. And so, for example, I spend my first action to move next to that monster, and now I'm gonna attack that monster. In which case, you attack with that with attack power of the card that you played. Monsters have a defense value, have a number of health points. This monster has a defense of 2, only 1 health point. And basically, you determine your attack after modifiers, you compare it with the defense, and any point of attack that exceeds the defense of the opponent is a hit that you inflict on them. So that would be a hit that kills that monster. And gives me as a token a candle. Candle tokens can be acquired in several ways, again including as a reward for killing monsters. And when I'm attacking, I can also spend candles to make my attack more powerful. Suppose there's a monster with a defense of 4, so this wouldn't be good enough. And I have 2 candles, I spend them, now 3 and 2 is 5. That would be enough to exceed the defense of the opponent. Candles can also be spent to heal, and that is the main way in which you heal damage. So, that is combat against a monster. You can also perform combat against other players, and it works exactly the same. Doors are very important because attacking through doors carries a penalty of -2. So if you're being pursued by a deranged, or you are being pursued by monsters, or you fear another player, making sure that they have to defend through doors is a great way to live a little longer. So, we got, oh, and the defense. The defense of the monsters, so when you're attacking a monster, is printed on the monster card. The defense of the character, if you're attacking another character, well, they will have to play a card from hand, and the defense of the card that they play is the defense that will apply against that attack. And there is one that has a defense of 6, so that means it's very, very difficult to hit a player. But again, when hiding through doors, hiding behind the door, most attacks and maybe murders become a little bit of a flesh wound, just a scratch. So, we move, we can attack, we can defend, we can also perform the search action by playing a card whose symbol next to the search icon matches the quarter of the board in which we are. Each quarter has a symbol, so here we have the Cthulhu-style jellyfish, and then we got the spider for another quarter, we got the raven or eagle, we don't know, and then the evil Halloween mask there. So to search again is by discarding the card with the correct symbol representing the quarter where you are. You can draw a card in a number location, or you can draw, well, you can draw a card from the deck, from that deck in a name location, or again, draw a card and discard the search token in a number location. And going to these number locations or to name locations is usually also how you discard your curse. So for example here, I spend an action to discard this curse if I am in the apothecary or the smithy, or I can discard this curse by spending an action in houses 2 or 5. During the day, as we said, the first action is for free, the second costs you a point of sanity. At night, the first action costs you a point of sanity, and the second one also. So it becomes very expensive to act at night, probably because you acted a little bit during the day also, and so you probably start with not too many sanity points left. It is true though that instead of performing a standard turn, as I said, play a card and perform 1 or 2 actions, you can choose to rest, in which case you simply regain 2 points of sanity if you're outside, 3 points of sanity if you are indoors, and you can discard your entire hand in order to advance the time token. And also remember that the time token advances if the card that you played for your action has that symbol, otherwise it doesn't. Again, when you're deranged, life is simpler in a sense because you take your cards and you flip them upside down. And now you don't have to worry about sanity anymore because you can't get any worse than where you're at. So with when you're playing as a deranger, you're only looking at the bottom of the cards. You never advance time, and you can basically move and attack in that order using the values and the color of the cards, the card that you're playing. And if you're defending, then you simply play a card using that thing. So as a deranged, that's the variant. The deranged is very fast, very strong. But again, a determined character hiding behind the door can survive a couple of attacks. So this is the general idea. And when you're acquiring cards, you add them to your hand, then they'll go in your deck. And so basically there is also a deck building element, which is not huge. So play your cards, going around, killing monsters, collecting candles, trying to get rid of your curses, dodge the deranged. From time to time, you'll be deranged, and continue like this until the end of the third night. And at that point, somebody will have lost, somebody will have won, or maybe everybody wins or everybody loses. But this is the general idea. This is an overview of how you play deranged. So, Deranged. When I read the rulebook, it felt that there was a degree of complexity there that made me not want to play the game with a large number of players, especially new players. The game goes to 5 or 6, and I thought that the downtime with new players that haven't grokked the system yet would just be unbearable. So, the first time I played it was with 3 friends, a game night, so 4 players. It didn't work for us. I'll explain later why. So then later, a couple of days later, I played it with 2 different friends. So this time, 3 players. It didn't work for us either. And so finally, I decided to try the third scenario solo just because I wanted to see that one. I was just controlling 3 characters and it didn't work for me either. So let me explain what happened there, and maybe you caught something that I've done wrong, I taught the game wrong, the studio wrong, and that's why the game just does not seem to work. But the point is that at the beginning, with 2 different groups of friends, people really liked it, including me. People were very excited. Yes, at the beginning, there's a lot to take into account, and you're likely to overlook this or that little thing. But vibes of Betrayal at the House on the Hill, vibes of Arkham Horror, going around this like gothic town with this like cool monsters, atmospheric art. People were excited. Again, Arkham Horror, Betrayal with an element of deck building, with a card-driven situation. You're spending your sanity, you're choosing your resources, you're going to collect those cool cards that you think are gonna be so game-changing. Everybody has a secret mission that I didn't mention in my main segment, which is optional anyway, so if you complete it, you're gonna get an extra card. If not, nothing happens. So there are a lot of things to do, and you really like the idea of budgeting different resources, manipulating your deck. And the first day, the game also goes pretty fast. Then at least one person becomes deranged in the previous night. It can be more through curses. And again, you're running from the derange and you're still doing other things. It feels like the game is how it should be. But it still takes a while to play, even with only 3 or 4 players. And starting from the second day and then the second night, the game just slows down a lot. Monsters, they just keep popping up because of scenario effects, and they start forming groups of ginormous monsters, large groups that are very, very hard to stop. And so when 4 monsters move next to you and they start attacking, you're likely to die. So you'll go to the cemetery, you'll get a curse card. Because of that, you didn't complete some of the missions, so that results in more curse cards, and you start having this avalanche effect. But more than just that reducing your chances of winning, which is true, there's just a certain silliness in having to run away from hordes of monsters, being killed, and then go back and repeat. There is the tedious element. But and then with the 4-player game in the second night, we have 3 deranged people and 1 survivor, me, running from everybody. And what really the problem was there is that time stopped. because the Deranged never advanced time. So there you had these people going around and killing monsters, but mainly trying to kill me. And from time to time, one of them would kill me. Hooray! So now that is cured. Now we have two people who, from time to time, advance time. Because again, not every card in the human deck will advance time. So that night was just endless. I was playing cards with time symbols just to get the game going. Not because necessarily that was gonna be the best thing. And basically we realized that we had been playing for more than 2 hours. We were in the middle or past the middle of the second night, so there was still gonna be a whole other day and a whole other night, which may have been just as long as that one. And we lost interest because by then the game had become repetitive and it just felt a little bit silly. I thought, again, maybe 4 players is still too much. Maybe again, I'll try with 3 players. It's gonna be move quicker, and that's why I play with different friends. And we had basically the same experience. Again, we've been playing for more than 2 hours. The game had become tedious and repetitive and looking silly with constant die because of hordes of monsters. People had such big piles of curses by then that I guess even counting turns were just impossible for people to do anything. And again, we gave up. And guess what happened when I played the game? So again, the same general script presented itself. Another thing that also made us think like we don't need to continue or we don't feel like continuing is the realization that somebody was going to be deranged at the beginning of the last night. At the beginning of every night, somebody gets a deranged card. And at that point, it may be entirely possible that you play for 2 hours, for 3 hours mainly, and then the flip of a card tells you that from moment on, from the first moment, you were going to lose. Because it's very hard if you only have one night there. Oh, what if somebody casts an exorcism? But OD they don't. There is no obligation. The semi-cooperative element, we didn't see it at all. There is really no incentive in cooperating. The only thing is everybody's deranged during the night. Everybody loses. But I'm looking at my big pile of cards or curse cards, and I know I'm gonna lose anyways. I don't feel particularly deranged right now, and I may have an exorcism, so I don't feel like using it for somebody else. So there is really no big incentive in cooperating. It just felt a competitive game, which seemed to have a great idea at the beginning, and then just started bogging down and become repetitive, and one turn after the other, and we all lost interest. Every time that we played it. So this is my assessment for Deranged. I don't know what could be done differently. If it's shortened, if there's less randomness, if you don't have the understanding, if you don't have the fact that somebody's likely to lose just because they got the Deranged card at the beginning of the game, but it takes them more than 2 hours to figure that out, that they had that card. I don't know what could be done differently, but I know that if I want to have vibes of Arkham Horror, vibes of Betrayal, I think I'll have to play these games, because this one is not a game in that family that I would feel like playing. Is not like a new card-driven take on that style. Again, it may be a take on that style, but again, not one that my friends and I found effective.